Hello, welcome to episode 9 of the Ellis Highlight Reel podcast. This is your host, Brandon Ellis, as always. Big episode this week. I got the interview with Corey Rothgeb. That's going to be the major part of the episode. And then we got some news on Brandon Brooks, the Brandon Brooks injury. We're going to talk about that after the interview. And then we're going to talk about the NBA players wanting to not play. So, first off, let's get into this interview with my friend, Mr. Corey Rothgeb. Yo, Corey, what's up?
Hello?
What's up?
Not much.
You're officially on the podcast. How's it feel?
Happy to be here, man.
Thank you for joining me. First off, how did it feel getting the win a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, my second season, in the pro league, and, to finally be able to get a win, especially on the PlayStation side, I was really looking forward to it. It's really hard to do on the PlayStation side, so, you really feel like you accomplished something when you get a win there.
Exactly. Speaking of the PlayStation side, who brings the most competition for you?
Yeah, with the PlayStation side, it's really, wouldn't necessarily say one person stands out. We're all pretty close. It's more of certain people are going to be good at certain tracks, and everybody has their strong suits. So there's some guys that are good at road courses, some guys good at short tracks. So it just depends on the week, who you really, who you think you're going to have to battle the most that week.
And speaking of tracks, you brought up the tracks. How important is knowing the tracks in NASCAR heat?
It's very important. A lot of the tracks, they drive pretty differently. You have bumps and stuff that you have to get your car to handle well over, and just learning the fastest line is extremely important. You can have the same type of car running the same speeds, but knowing the track and knowing what line to run, and maybe arc it out a little more here. Drive it a little straighter off. Just knowing how the track drives is extremely important. And there's some tracks where you can run a second groove up and actually make your car work if you set your car up that way.
Good points. Always good points from you, sir. Another thing is too the crew chief too. Your crew chief, I've gotten to know pretty well on the PlayStation, on playing other games, obviously. Big Destroyer is his PlayStation name. Dylan is his real name. Your relationship with him and how important is it compared to real life drivers?
Yeah, so me and Dylan started working together last season, the first season. So last year, I think we both went through the qualifying period together. Then after after I got drafted and he didn't, I asked him to be my crew chief. And then we just kind of clicked from there. And this year he didn't even really try to go out and requalify, being that I had to requalify. He just kind of said, I'm going to stick with you, and we're just both going to try to get you in, and let's do the same thing we did last year. But, it's really important. It sounds a little funny sometimes, you talk about having a crew chief on a video game.
Right.
But, in a lot of ways that, Dylan helps me with the same ways that, crew chiefs help the real drivers in real life.
Mm-hmm.
He's in my ear during the races. A little bit different aspect is that, he can actually help me set the car up, and he can actually drive it himself.
Mm-hmm.
So he can tell what it's doing without me having to actually tell him what it's doing. So he helps me with adjustments, helps me set the cars up. And then the most important thing is probably just, in the race, he's in my ear, We set the strategy early on before the race, the week of the race. So then while the race is going on, he's in my ear telling me, hey, you're pitting this lap, you're coming to however many laps to go, and, telling me distances, kind of working like a spotter in a way, telling me distances, the guys behind me, who's fastest on track, and really what to worry about.
Exactly. Good points again. Another thing I wanted to know, you mentioned the adjustments, right? When you get into the adjustments, how in depth are they, and as well as do they simulate the real life aspects of NASCAR?
Yeah. So being that it's a video game on a console, they're a little bit limited to how in depth they can go. Some simulations, can get really in depth, and you have just about every adjustment that you can make on a real car, that you can make on the simulation. But as far as the video game on NASCAR Heat, it's not too in depth, but you have your basic areas of your shocks and your springs and track bars, front sway bars, some wedge, and your weights on your car and your tire pressures and stuff like that. So I would say it's not as in depth, so you can't really do as much as you would do in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, the adjustments are. I mean, you can, if you know what an adjustment does in real life, it's probably going to do about the same thing on the video game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not to the same extent because just the way the cars drive, because it's obviously vertical, so you don't really get that load and all that of the of the tires and the way the car sets down. You don't really get that on the video game as you do in real life. So they obviously have a lot more fine-tuning adjustments that they can do,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we just basically, there's a lot of big adjustments that we can make.
Right. Speaking of adjustments and stuff like that too, another thing is controller or wheel. Which is better? Which one do you recommend as a pro driver?
Yeah, so I've been on both. Last season 1, I was the only PlayStation. I was the only PlayStation driver that was on a controller to make the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
So last season, I used a controller the entire time, and that was what fit me. That was what I was comfortable with.
Right.
I ended up getting a wheel and using it every now and then, but just as far as being at that high of a level, competing week in, week out, I didn't really want to go too far away from my comfort zone, so I stuck with the controller because that's what I was used to. But this year, the entire league switched to wheels.
Mm-hmm.
For everybody to run.
Gotcha.
It's a whole lot different. The setup is completely different. A lot of the setups that I had for my controller don't work for a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But a wheel is a wheel is nice because, obviously you're still not getting that feel of being inside of a race car, but
Right.
you get a little bit more feel using a wheel, and you can hold your line a whole lot more consistently, and I think it's a little bit easier to tell what your car is actually doing.
Also, you've recently had a kid, and then you also have been working too, especially now, and especially during the first season. But you recently had a kid. How has life been adjusting to the kid, and then work, and then getting on PlayStation with Dylan and making the adjustments every night?
Yeah, so it can definitely be tough. You have to have that support of the people around you, and my wife is supportive, and the rest of my family is pretty supportive about it, and everybody, they support watching the races and cheer me on and stuff like that. But as far as a lot of us, work an actual 9-to-5 job during the day, and then this is what we do in the evening. So it can be a little bit stressful. Last season, we had an off week in between each race, so we had 2 weeks to work on the track.
Right.
This season we've been more, racing every single week, so you only have about a week to get a car ready.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit more time in the evenings put in this year, I would say, than it was last year. But fortunately, like I said with my crew chief, he's willing to grind through the hours with me and put in the time to put some fast cars out on the tracks.
That's how I know you. Like, I know you are dedicated to this, and I know that you are perfect for it too, because you have the mindset, the willing to do everything the right way. Getting into another thing I wanted to know is the promotional material you gave. You recently showed us a little kid winning a Worth hat, and your wife Caitlin picked it out. How many have you done over the last 2 years, and how does it feel for you to give out these promotions?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, last year was with I had Penzo in the car,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of the whole process of getting the league started last year was kind of a quick moving process. So I wouldn't necessarily say that people really didn't, nobody involved,
Mm-hmm.
teams, drivers, sponsors, whatever, really didn't have as much time to get everything in line and in order. Being that it was the first season, nobody really knew what to expect. Also, as how it would work out. But this year, we had on my number 2 car / truck, we had Worth come on board,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell you what, they've been phenomenal. They've been involved heavily, from the get-go, starting this season. And, that promotional, so I think I've done one hat. I think our Penske Esports account, which is on Twitter,
Right.
has done a hat. But, yeah, it's been great. Their work has been super supportive and, sending me stuff to be able to interact with fans and, try to build our base as well as build their brand as well.
That's all. That's a good point too, because this is a big esport now. It's becoming an esport, just like the 2K League and just like all the other leagues and everything like that, like Fortnite and everything like that. So you got to get the outside support as well. So it's always a good thing. Well, Corey, I'm gonna end the interview here. It was great talking to you. Just give out your handle and everything like that where people can follow you.
Hey man, appreciate it. My handle is at Corey Rothgeb 3 on Twitter. I believe it's the same thing on Instagram. I would be lying if I said I was positive on that, but I believe that's the same thing. And while you're at it, go ahead and follow Team Penske Esports on Twitter as well to stay up to date with all the action. And Worth Racing on Twitter to keep up to date. They usually posting about when our races are and stuff like that.
All right. Thank you, Corey, again, and I'll talk to you later tonight on PlayStation.
Yeah, man, appreciate it.
All right, man. Talk to you later. All right, that was Corey Rothgeb, PlayStation Pro Series driver on NASCAR Heat for the last 2 years. Great interview as always. Thank you, Corey, again. Now let's get into some topics I wanted to talk about. Came up the other day. Brandon Brooks, Eagles right guard, probably the best right guard in the league. The last 3 years, tore his left Achilles. He was running 60-yard shuttles and everything like that, and it just went. It just popped. It was like on 7 out of 8, it was 8-1, and he felt it pop when he touched the line. So where did the Eagles go from here? As you know, they're my team. And I feel that they're going to go with Matt Pryor or Jack Driscoll in that spot. They're going to go within to the start. There's rumors out there that Larry Warford's available too, the former Saints right guard, that they cut this offseason. And there's also rumors going out there from Albert Breer that Joe Thuney could be a trade option down the road too, who the Patriots franchise tagged. I don't think the Joe Thuney thing is going to happen because I don't think the Patriots are going to be tanking, but we'll see. It's basically a 1-year thing too, and I think Matt Pryor did good enough in the games he was in to prove that he can probably, if he had a full training off season, he can at that right guard position starting, he could probably be a great fill-in option for 1 year. Granted, now the offensive line is going to have to make adjustments as well around it, but when you have Jeff Stoutland, who's probably one of the best O-line coaches in the league, I think they can make the adjustment. So the injury is a huge deal because the talent you lost, but when you had the coaching staff that the Eagles do, it might be mitigated a little bit. So as a fan, I'm hoping we get it right, because if you don't get it right, it's going to be, your expectations are going to be lessened. But I have faith in Doug Peterson and Jeff Stoutland and that offensive coaching staff to get it right. With that being said, the next part of the episode and I wanted to talk about was Kyrie Irving and some of the players that don't want to play basketball because of what's going on in the world right now, and how I feel about it. I feel that they're saying it'll be a distraction from the movement and misinterpreting the point of the movement if we played and go down to Orlando. I feel if you go down to Orlando, you can still get your voice out there and get the movement out there more. I feel that way. I really do. I think people will listen too. Now, I think Adam Silver is doing the right thing, saying he supports those players if they don't want to play. I think he's doing the right thing by saying that. But when you look at Kyrie and you look at Dwight Howard and you look at these players that don't want to play right now, and I get that. I get they don't want to play, and I feel that the movement is important. It should be important. But I also feel like Stephen A. feels, and like many other people feel right now, that if you play, the movement will get notified even more. You know what I mean? So I think the movement will get more notice. So that's how I wanted to say on that. I just wanted to say my piece on it. Also wanted to thank again Corey. Shout out Corey again. He's a great guy. He's awesome. He's an awesome driver, the most consistent driver on the circuit in the PlayStation Pro Series. He will finish, consistent. He's a consistent driver. He's not some of these drivers that go up and down, up and down. He's consistent, which you like in a guy like that. And I think Penske's got a great driver in Corey Rothgeb. Anyway, with that being said, that's this week's episode of the Ellis Highlight Reel podcast. I will talk to y'all next week. We're going to have more topics, more lists. We're going to get back to a normal episode. And then maybe we'll have another interview the following week. I just got to get it lined up. But with that being said, peace.